Okay. So again, open up the chat. In the chat, you'll see the link to a Google Drive folder that I set up last night with all the documents. You may have already seen some of these documents if you have been exploring this program. What I just want to try to give you a head start if possible. I've probably spent, I don't know, maybe 5 hours on this so far, which includes 3 webinars and a couple of sort of one-on-one conversations with people who know how to respond to these types of solicitations. So I'm just trying to give you a head start and share with you what I understand about this proposal. The more I listen to, the more I learn about this, the more I think it's manageable. That being said, it is a federal solicitation, so it's gonna take a little bit of work this week to pull it off and get it in by Friday at 1 o'clock. So the reason why it's a ridiculous timeline is obviously because we're in an emergency. This is a chunk of the federal money that was set aside for farmers given to USDA. This is a program that they've come up with. They're trying to basically get product from local farms to families in need. It's not a grant, it's a solicitation. So it's structured a little bit differently than a typical federal grant. Still, there's going to be lots of crazy rules to be even considered. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat. You can try raising your hand. But let me go over some of this first before we generate a bunch of questions. And okay, so I'm going to share my screen and start with that. Again, if you're just joining, open up the chat button, please, on your Zoom, and look for the link on Drive. Where's the folder with a bunch of documents that I've dropped in for you. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this works. Okay, so what you should be able to see here is the folder that I've dropped, that I created on Google Drive with all the pieces of the proposal. So I think it would be easiest if you opened up a document called How to Get Started. All of these links are shareable. All these links are also, they do give you permission to edit, but please don't edit these documents so others can use it. The first and most important thing you should know is that there is one more webinar today. There's been 3 so far. You can listen to recordings of those. It's at the top of the document that I created. I'm in the document called How to Get Started. Okay, I see people jumping in. That's great. So in the document How to Get Started, I've put the information for the webinar that's taking place today at USDA at noon. All right, if you've just joined, you need to open up the chat. And in the chat, you'll see the link for the Drive folder. In the Drive folder, there's a document called How to Get Started. In the How to Get Started button, there is, at the top, links to the past 3 webinars that have taken place so far, as well as information about the Zoom that's taking place today at noon. I see a bunch of chats coming in, so I want to make sure this isn't. I get started, nothing in the chat, not seeing any links. Okay, let me try again with the Drive folder. All right, I put the link in again. Give you a minute, try that again. Roger, is that working? Okay.
Yeah, I see it now.
Okay. All right. If you're in the right folder, you should open up the doc called How to Get Started. I see like 3 people have found it. So I'm just gonna start walking through some of this. The first rule of any federal proposal is you really have to submit on time. You can't submit at 1:05. It's due at 1 o'clock on Friday. I strongly urge you to not wait till 12:59 to do that. It'll be so stressful. So that's one of the golden rules of a federal proposal, is always get it on time. The second golden rule for any federal proposal is make sure you have all the proposal elements. Even if they're not perfect, don't leave out a single element. The way I look at this right now, there seems to be 6 elements that have to be included in your proposal, which I'll talk about with you. I think that it's easier with this solicitation if you print it out. It is really a mess. They put it together in like a week. They are going to, they put it together in a week. They are going to give us, they're only giving people 1 week to apply, then they're giving themselves 1 week to select winners, and then it's 1 week from there that the program launches. So just imagine things that could be going wrong in that context when people are rushing like that. But make sure you do it on time. Make sure you include all the elements. Print out the solicitation. I'm going over what I understand from the solicitation, but of course you're obligated to read it yourself and make sure you understand it. In the solicitation, you are called the offerer. That's what you are going to. So every time you see offerer, think of it as the applicant, okay? In order to apply, you need something called a dunce number. I have a link in the document that I'm trying to get you guys to follow along with me, the How to Get Started document. It's supposed to only take a day to get a dunce number. There's another number which has been referred to a few times. It's called a SAM number. This is a question I have. A SAM takes a little bit longer. It's really for once you get a federal award. SAM.gov is how you actually communicate back and forth with the federal government and ask them, to pay your invoices. USDA on the webinar last week said very clearly you do not need a SAM number in order to apply. I heard some confusion about that yesterday. Some people thought you did. I've asked for clarification on that. At the moment, I think the only thing you have to have is a dunce number, which is a federal government sort of designation, a number that you'll need. Your business will need that number if it doesn't have it already. It shouldn't be too onerous to get your dunce number. That dunce number will show up on some of the application docs. So then the next thing you'll need to do is figure out who you want your boxes to go to, because as soon as you can think that through, the sooner you should get on the phone and talk to that entity. So that's like a food bank, a food pantry. It could definitely be a school. It has to be a nonprofit. And it's going to have to be a nonprofit that can facilitate passing out these boxes to families in need. So USDA keeps saying, this is from the truck to the trunk. They're picturing this is a box of veggies, or a box of veggies and milk maybe. Comes out of the truck. It's a family size. It's an appropriate size for a family, maybe 10 pounds, maybe 20 pounds, and it goes right into the trunk of a family in need. So use that vision as you try to put this together. Like, okay, what entity do you know in your community that can really facilitate that type of scheme where they already have identified families in need? And so you need to identify that recipient, because you're going to have to talk about that in your proposal. And so you probably need to get on the phone with them and figure this out pretty quick. How many can they handle? How many boxes can they handle? Is it weekly? Is it every other week? How many families do they have? Is it the same families that would get the boxes every week? Or they just have a larger pool, but they're confident they can move 30 boxes out every week? So you want to think that through. Are the families going to be okay if you put kohlrabi in the box? You know, so you need to just start talking through those ideas with your designated nonprofit. The next thing you have to decide is what kind of box you're going to do. You can do a veggie box, like veggie and fruit box, or they have something called a combination box. I'm talking to you about those specifically because I think I know the types of farms that you're representing. I noticed that eggs is not included in one of the options, and I'll show you where this is in the solicitation too. It's on page 5 of the solicitation where they sort of explain the different options. But option 1 is the veggie and fruit mix box. And then I think option 3 or 4 is the, let's see, on page 5 of the solicitation. I will say it right now. Option 4, item number 4, they call it as a combination box. So option 1 is fresh fruit, fresh vegetable box. Option 2 is a dairy product box. Option 3 is a pre-cooked box, pre-cooked meat box, I'm sorry. That would be not beef, pork and chicken. Option 4 is the combo box, and option 5 is just a fluid milk box. So you have to say which box you're going to do. And then you have to figure out which months you're going to do this. So in the solicitation, they have broken out 4 different periods for delivery of the boxes. You have to apply now, even if you think you're going to change your box for the 2nd or 3rd period or the 4th period. So the first period, they're calling the base period, and that starts May 15th and it goes to June 30th. The second period, they're calling it option 1, and that's July and August, July 1st to August 31st. The third time period is they're called option 2, that's September 1st to October 31st. And the last period of time is the November-December period, November 1st to December 31st. They call it option 3. So you've got the base period, option 1, option 2, option 3. So when you start thinking about your boxes, you probably want to think about like, okay, this is what the box is going to look like May and June. This is what the box is going to look like July, August. Now I'm going to have a different box in September, October, and a different box for November, December. I want to point out that when you're imagining these boxes and the different seasonality, you can change the value of the box over those times. So you might have a $20 box in the base period and a $30 box in the July-August period, or you're allowed to change the value. I also want to suggest that you think about your ability to partner with other farms. So pick your own farms, especially those who are doing berries this year, are in an increasingly vulnerable situation. And if you can partner with a berry farm, pick your own farm, so that you can include in your box every week a quart of strawberries, for example, or a pint of blueberries, that might be a really nice arrangement for one of your neighboring farms. And then of course there's apples in the fall. So because of the current COVID virus, the pick your own operations are a big question mark as to how they're going to manage, the same volume of customers given social distancing. Okay, so where am I? So you figure out where your boxes are going, figure out what kind of box you want to do, figure out which months you want to do it. And then there's a document which they call Exhibit 2. There's 3 of these exhibits, Exhibit 2, 5, and 6. I know it sounds gobbledygook language, but that's why I'm trying to break it down a little bit for you. So Exhibit 2 is the chart where you sort of map out all your boxes. Okay, I have a link in there for that. We can look at those in a little bit. And then they also want you to prove that you have some past performance experience. So be creative in this. If you're a CSA or a small farm and you have sold to a school, for example, in the past, that can qualify as past performance. So it doesn't have to be a contract, a huge contract, but who have you contracted with restaurants to deliver something on a weekly basis? So you want to fill out Exhibit 5 3 times, and in order to show past performance. What USDA is looking for here is that you can pull this off, that you are reliable, you've had a contract in the past, you know how to fulfill a contract. Okay. Then there's these 4 sections for the proposal. They call it Part 1, Part 2, 3, and 4. I have documents for each of those just to get you started. So I'm going to back up out of this how to get started and go back to the Drive folder. And I'm going to open up the folder that says 4 proposal sections. And Katie, my quick answer, I don't know for sure. It looks like eggs are not part of the option. It's not in on the on page 5. I don't see eggs listed in any of the options for boxes. All right, so I'm in the 4 proposal sections for the bid. I'm going to open up Part 1, Proposal Part 1, and just show you that. You don't have to use these. I just set these up to help you get started. I heard yesterday on a call that this Part 1 is probably the most important part for telling your story. And that's why out of a 10-page proposal, which is the maximum length of this proposal, you should probably dedicate 3 to 5 pages to this Part 1. Part 1 is called Technical Information, and they have 3 questions here. One question is to prove how you are going to be supporting American agriculture. One question is about your distribution plan, and the last question is about your they call it compliance and delivery confirmation plan. So some sort of you can read through the text there. The grayed out text comes directly out of the solicitation. This is what they're asking you to fill in under each of these areas. Again, this should be 3 to 5 pages, it seems. The suggestion is to be really clear, don't be humble, but also don't be flowery. So sometimes when we write grants to foundations, we go on and on and on to explain, to make our case. Remember that USDA has 1 week to figure out which folks are going to get this money. They have $100 million in just fruit and veg. They have another $100 million in dairy, and they're going to be picking winners really, really quickly. So you have to put together something that is really, really clear, simple, easy to understand, no fancy fonts. Just answer the questions. Like, for example, supporting American agriculture. You want to make a clear statement that, like, our farm supports American agriculture by, just make a really basic, clear statement about it. I have been thinking about the fact that they only have 1 week to select winners. And I hate to say it, but I think there is going to be a lot of bias that's going to kick into their selection process because they're rushing. Certainly they're going to look for some big proposals, folks that can come in that can do 200, 300 boxes a week. But I think if a small farm can reliably promise 30 boxes a week or so. This is me just guessing, we're all guessing, but I think if you can reliably promise something like 30 boxes a week, and you can also clearly explain the need for those boxes on the recipient side, maybe because you know your community has a high need, there's been a lot of layoffs, there's been a significant impact from the virus, especially in Fairfield County. I think that so long as it's a really clear proposal, you still have a really good shot at it. Okay, I'm going to back out of technical information doc and go back to my drive folder. Let's see, everything's pretty slow here. All right, proposal part 2, you are, remember, the offerer. And in this section, you have to make the case that you can pull this off, that you have the capabilities to pull it off. As I understand it, you have to answer this grayed out text, and you have to fill out Exhibit 6. So I'm going to open up Exhibit 6 now. And show you what this document is. My suggestion to you is do not change the formatting of their documents. So I took the PDF last night and converted it into a Word document and uploaded it here, but it is exactly the same as it looks in the solicitation. You can download this and fill it out. You can't fill out the PDF, so you're going to need something of this sort. So here's the question about the sam.gov. Very first thing, I think that you will be able to write something in here along the lines of will obtain sam.gov upon selection for this program or something like that. Because again, USDA said on the webinar last week, you do not need sam.gov. I did put a question to them about that today, and I'll let any of you know if I hear otherwise. The facility information is probably not applicable unless you're a very, very big establishment. Small business designation seems like you'd be able to check off a couple of these, at least the small business. I have not opened this link yet for the WBSCM, so I'm really not sure what to tell you on that one. This exhibit document I find pretty challenging. Then they have the company letter question. Looks like this is where you need to write a paragraph about the history of your farm business. The next section is confirm that none of you have been debarred. You probably say, I think you just put today's date if you are not debarred. You probably are going to say not applicable in the next row. And then these two boxes under non-manufacturers, I have some questions on, which I've put to USDA. It's not clear to me what they're looking for. A colleague yesterday suggested that when they say, please describe how the offerer is engaged in the wholesale retail trade and sell the items being offered to the general public, this is probably where you need a paragraph, and it would not fit here, obviously, so you have to have an attachment to this or on the next page where you say how you sell your product. So you sell 30% at 2 farmers markets, 10 weeks of the year, or you have a CSA, 100-member CSA. So this is where you would describe how you normally are selling. And then this next one, copy of the written agreement between the non-manufacturer and approved supplier. This is a big question mark for me at the moment. It's not realistic that you would know if you, for example, were aggregating product from any other farms, that you already have a written agreement. So I have a big question mark on this one. Possibly it's a non-applicable, or possibly you provide a template of agreements that you've used in the past. If you have, like, for example, at Sub-Edge Farm, if you're bringing in other products, do you have a normal template that you use when you set up those agreements with those suppliers? And then the last row is a financial audit that you're going to need to attach to Exhibit 6. So I agree. I totally hear you if you're looking at it now and your stomach is churning. I hate Exhibit 6. It's very unclear. I'll try to find out more information and add to this so that it's more useful to you. I'm going to back up out of this now. And I'm going to go back to Drive, look at past Part 3. This is the past performance section. And again, they have some questions. I'm not sure how much text you're going to provide in Part 3. Seems like you could write a paragraph or so about the work that you've done, and then you need to provide 3 copies of what's called Exhibit 5. And this is just seems like a pretty easy document that you fill out that talks about maybe that school that you supplied or a restaurant that you supplied. USDA says in the solicitation that they're going to contact these folks. I don't know how they'll have time for that, but make sure you're providing accurate contact information on Exhibit 5. Again, you have to do 3 of these, and it's unclear if the three pages that Exhibit 5 will become counts towards the 10 pages. I also asked that question of USDA this morning. Just some quick answers to some chat questions. Somebody just said they actually applied for a SAM on Sunday night, but didn't get it. And then somebody else asked if middlemen are allowed to apply for this. Absolutely, absolutely. Not sure about this question. Can past years, yes. I'm not sure if past CSA pickup logs can apply for your history. Seems plausible. Your job is to convince USDA quickly and clearly that you can handle this, that you have the wherewithal. All right, I'm going to back out of this again and look at the last proposal section, number 4. Oops, where am I? Sorry, a little bit of slow connection here at the house. So proposal part 4 is the prices, and to me this looks like the heart of the proposal. I don't see that there's any text that you're actually going to provide on this document. You're actually going to go straight into Exhibit 2. And Exhibit 2 is a chart that's provided in the solicitation. I really don't think you should change. I hate the way this chart looks, but don't change the formatting on it. And this is where you sort of show that you've thought it through. So you can see at the top, that's where you're going to have to put the name of your farm and your dunce number. That's the D&B is Dun and Bradstreet number. That's where your dunce number is going to go in. And then you try to fill out this chart. And it's not as complicated as it looks. The item number here and the NAICS number here are really easy to find on page 5 of the solicitation. And then the application period, that's what I was telling you before, whether it's May, June, July, August, September, October, or November, December. That's also easy to find in the solicitation. It might be page 6 of the solicitation. And you either call it base, option 1, option 2, or option 3. That's what you're going to fill in that second column. So the first 3 columns of this is really easy. Then you get to the heart of the proposal. What's going to be in the box and what's the weight of the box? So is it 1 head of lettuce? Is it a quart of berries? Is it a gallon of milk? So you want to provide that specificity in the 4th column, and then you want to estimate what is the weight of that box. Is it a 10-pound box, 20-pound box, and so forth. Your region is going to be northeast. In fact, you should put that in. And then how many boxes? Your unit price. So as I understand it, how many boxes, because you're like, let's suppose here you say your base period, you're talking May and June, which is going to be, starts May 15th actually. So that might be 6 weeks of delivery. And if you're doing weekly deliveries, it looks to me like how many boxes in those 6 weeks are you going to pull off? So if you're doing 30 boxes a week and there's 6 weeks, maybe you're going to say it's 180 boxes in here. And then your value of those boxes. There's no specs for this particular solicitation. And the only advice there seems to be is the price has to be fair and reasonable. So I know a CSA on average in Connecticut is, 32 bucks a week. On the value of those CSAs, it varies, from 20 up to 50. Don't forget though, USDA there's going to be some level of competition. If you put in a proposal with a $50 box and somebody else is offering $30 boxes, they're probably not going to be really excited about selecting your proposal. But you have to be realistic. You don't want to undercut yourself. You have to include the cost of your labor. You have to consider the cost of your delivery, the cost of the box itself. There were questions about whether or not it has to be a box, and USDA said, well, it's supposed to be a box, but then somebody said, well, could it be a reusable box? And they said, well, yeah, I guess it could be a reusable box. I don't think it really matters that much if it's a box or a bag when it comes down to it. When you look at all these details, the question is, do you have a box-like quantity of product that is packaged up for families that's easy to take out of the truck and put into the trunk again? So I think if things don't fit in here, let's see what happens. Let's pretend we have a box here. We've got some spring onions, maybe a quart of berries. So it's going to start wrapping around as you do this, maybe a gallon of milk. So that's how you're going to do it. And then maybe you say, this is a, 8-ounce bunch. Give your details in here. Gallon of what? 2% milk. Be as specific as you can. Show that you're professionals and you know what you're dealing with. I'm just plugging in examples so that you can start to imagine what this might look like for yourself, John's Food Pantry. up. All right, I'm going to back out of this again. All right, in addition to these 4 sections with the forms that they have included in here, there's also the SF 1449 document. And I'm still figuring out this as well, but it's reassuring, even though it's a clunky document, that the only parts they want you to complete, if you note at the very top, offer is to complete blocks. There's only 5 blocks you're supposed to complete on this form. So blocks 12, 17, 23, 24, and 30. So you need to do that. You have to sign it. I still do not know what block 12 is supposed to have, this discount terms. If somebody else does, let me know in the chat. Looks like 17, you're going to put your contact information in there. Block 23, you're going to have your unit price of the box. I'm not sure how you're going to do this if your unit price changes. Hopefully we'll get more information on the call today at noon. Looks like block 24 will be your total, and then block 30 is where you sign. So hopefully we'll get more advice on how to fill in those blocks by the end of today. There's one other document that is referenced in, this is the solicitation I've just opened up. And on page 3, they have something called the checklist. And this is something I'm confused about. The checklist also talks about form SF30. There's no SF30 in this solicitation so far. So I'm not exactly sure what to do with that part. So last thing in the Google Drive folder I just want to show you is I created a document called How to Submit. This is the exact same information that is in the solicitation. I just pulled it out because you might not see it, and you really have to follow these instructions carefully. After you have all your docs together, your 10 pages, no more than 10 pages, you're using 12 font. It's all single space. Don't get fancy. Just make it easy and clear. When you actually submit, you compose an email to this email that they provided. They tell you what the subject of the email should be. Then they tell you in the body of the email, you write Northeast exactly the way they have told you to do so in the solicitation. So don't change it in any way. Do it exactly the way they told you to do this. And then you should have all these attachments. And as I understand it right now, there are 6 attachments at the most. So even when you have a chart, let's say for part 4, you have the chart with the boxes. Even there, just call the document proposal part 4 prices. And then you'll have, when somebody opens up the document, they'll see exhibit 2, which is the chart that we just were looking at more carefully. So I know the language is frustrating. I'm gonna get out of this Drive folder. I apologize for my clunky screen management here. Let's see. So try to stop sharing my screen here. Okay, so you do not need to become an approved vendor. Yes, I recorded the I recorded my presentation as all over the place it is, in case it's helpful to anyone. But I really encourage you to watch the 12 o'clock Zoom that USDA is putting on. Does anybody want to unmute themselves and ask other questions? I'm happy to try to answer. Like I said, I'm really just trying to help you.
I'm there.
Hey, this is Katie from Massaro Farm. So this is really helpful. You mentioned a number of things that you had submitted questions for clarification on. So following today's Zoom by the USDA, what's your plan for communicating the answers that you get?
Yeah, you know what would be really helpful to me would be if you would, anybody that wants to get, I will forward the answers I get from USDA if they respond to me, to anyone on this call, but it would be helpful if you would just drop your email into the chat. That way I can quickly put those emails into one message. And then if USDA responds, I can just forward to you. The chat's automatically saved. I do think Northwest Food Hub might be applying, which would be awesome if you feel more comfortable partnering there. I don't know, Lee, if Click is going to apply. I was talking to Willie Co-op to see if they might apply. So food hubs in particular are in a really good position to apply, but a CSA can apply as well.
My question, I got most of this filled out. I've been working on it since Sunday night. When it asks for, you get down to the, where it asks for the bank information or adequate financial resources to perform the contract. Bank letter of reference, what are they exactly? Are they?
Is that on Exhibit 6?
Yeah.
I think you need an audit. Do you have an audit, a financial audit from your business?
Well, yeah, yeah.
We don't have an audit.
Yeah, I mean, an audit. Are they looking for like? If they're looking for like an audit that you'd have as a larger commercial business, no. I mean, we don't do that stuff. I don't think any firm does that stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, if they're talking like a government forensic audit, besides the one that the IRS has pulled on us for 2017, no. They've been here and scoured over every penny and turned every stone over on this farm. But we don't do any forensic type stuff or any fancy audits. So I don't know that one and the bank letter reference. I mean, what are they going to say? Oh, yeah, he's got X amount of money in his bank account, because that's not a bet. The farmer's bank account this time of year doesn't have too much money in it.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. We should pose to USDA.
The only one that bothers me is that one. And then the facility information, luckily we're exempt from that, because that, I think they're looking for like serious, FDA inspections on that stuff.
Correct. Yeah, I think you're small. Farms are small. Even many, I think, large. I think you have to be a pretty large warehouse to have a, what do they call it? The FDA, the food facility registration number. Yeah. But I think back to your question about the bank, if you don't have an audited financial statement or something from like maybe Farm Credit, yeah, you need to, so what he's referring to is on Exhibit 6, which I believe is part of Proposal Section 2. The last row of that document says you have to show that you have adequate financial resources to perform the contract. So yeah, and somewhere else they also talk about financial prowess. So they are looking for something that shows that you have some sort of financial stability, right? Like you're going to be reimbursed by the federal government. So every time you send, let's suppose you send 30 boxes out, you send an invoice to USDA, and they said they will pay that invoice in 3 days. But you're still incurring the initial cost of putting those boxes together and sending them out the door. And so you have to have, so you're not waiting for the money in order to get started. You're going to get started and get reimbursed.
Oh, so then really, I mean, I have obviously bank paperwork for a working capital loan for this year. And I don't know.
Maybe that
should work. I mean, it adds up to a pretty good amount of number. And if I have to, yeah, I mean,
that's a
then
good
I guess
question,
that's not a problem.
We should, do you see, so if you've played with this enough, I'm not sure who I'm talking to. Who am I talking to?
It's Willie from Chickarelli's down in Northford.
Oh, hi. Hi, Willie. So if you saw in the solicitation, they keep saying, if you have any questions, email us. And I think they actually already created a frequently asked question webpage where they're putting some of the answers. But I think it's worth sending an email to them using that email. It's like, it's the same as the email that you have to use to submit. It's the ER acquisition.
I sent one and I got a broad, I was looking for a little more specific of an answer, but I got a broad answer. Basically said, yeah, just submit your application and we'll pick the best winner out of it, really is what it said. So
That's
I don't know.
helpful. That's not helpful. Well, maybe at noon there'll be, so yeah, I don't know if you were on the first call for this last week. There were 3,000 people on the call last week on Monday. So they're obviously getting slammed. And so, all right, I'll listen for that today at noon. And if I hear anything, I'll try to let you know.
I mean, it sounds like, something like a simple profit and loss or a balance sheet statement would probably answer their question of, do you have the resources to get started, which is what it sounds like they're trying to get to. But
yeah,
that's simple enough. I just didn't know if they wanted like a sealed audit from an accountant.
I mean, would they like that? They would probably love that. If you have something that is, like I said, they're working, they're going to make this choice in a week, so be as persuasive as you can, put as much as you can together. I'm thinking there, when I was talking about bias earlier, I'm thinking that they also probably know just where a lot of, from, how do I say this? They know, like, if you were in New York City and you were applying for this, they would be like, oh yeah, we're funding this one, right? Because everybody knows, like, that is where, like, some of the worst pain of the crisis is felt right now. So that bias is going to kick in here.
So, I mean, I'm, I wouldn't be afraid to go out on the line and say, hey, I could bring them 2,000-3,000 boxes a week down into the city. But I didn't know if that's what they wanted. I mean, if that's what they want, I mean, if you're just going to roll a truck into a local food pantry, unload 20 skids that are full of 50 boxes, that's a big load of stuff for anybody. But I could cover that in a heartbeat here if you're just making 20-pound boxes, So
yeah.
But I think that local, still we're on the fringes of it, and for me right here in Wallingford, I've donated. I don't even know. I never got a end of the year number from her last year, but I'm gonna go venture to guess. I brought her at least 14 or 15 tons of food last year.
Okay.
Tons, not pounds, tons, and
yeah.
So
I wonder if you can partner with Bridgeport. I wonder. I think the impression of pain being felt in New York City, like, is a little bit expanded into Fairfield County. So if you could get to Danbury or Bridgeport, I think even the bias would still help you.
even her in Wallingford here, you know, they extend down the Gold Coast down here towards Fairfield. I believe she goes into Fairfield County.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I don't. That's probably, I don't know. So
Do you need a destination, Willie?
no, I heard my destination. I've already talked to Connecticut Food Bank over in Wallingford.
Okay, all right. So you're set.
And yeah, she's willing to take thousands of boxes. So
Okay.
I'm gonna try to figure this one out. I mean,
okay. I'm happy to get on the phone with anybody that's going to try to apply, and just as a thought partner, like, what do you think they're looking for here? I'm more than happy to do that. I really would love to see this money come to Connecticut growers. So anybody that thinks they can get the money to, you know, fuel Connecticut local farms, and of course help families in need, I'm all in. I'll help if I can.
I just wish there was a in their process of picking here. I wish there was a box that said direct farm or not, because let's face it, I and we collectively as farmers in Connecticut don't really have a lobbyist, and I'm afraid that some of these big companies could sneak in the back door and just make ungodly amounts of stuff. So I just hope that's not the end result.
I'm afraid of that too, Willie, but they're definitely going to have to make sure boxes are being delivered in the Northeast. So yeah, there are going to be a lot of Midwest large produce folks or California that are going to respond to this and grab a lot of this money. But there's no question they have to make sure there's regional distribution of some of these funds. And so, you know, if you're able to move a lot of boxes effectively in Connecticut or New York, I think you still have a strong competitive chance at this.
Okay.
Any other questions folks have?
Yes, Derek Bedward, operating here in Oxford, not Farm Incorporated. We farming on a little spot, and we're thinking about the farmers market coming up and our local customers. So I'm really interested in right now. But I think we have a limited amount of produce. Since we're not working on all that much land, not even an acre, and we grow here in Hartford, we supply the schools with some veggies in the summer, Hartford Public Schools. But this sound interested here from USDA, and you know, I pretty much thought I could get involved. It's small for me, as I've mentioned. I'm not a big fan. We grow veggies right through the summer and support customers in Hartford.
Derek, I'm so sorry. I'm having a really hard time hearing you. I don't know if others are as well. Do you have a specific question that I can try to answer for you? I know about your sales to Hartford schools.
Yes, I pretty much would like to get involved in some way, and the growing season is just approaching. Yeah. And you mentioned December 21st that they will still take in produce somewhat like that. So that will still give the farmer time to grow the stuff and deliver it.
Yeah, you can do it into December if that's what you were wondering. Let's see. I'm trying to think, Derek, if there's somebody you might want to partner with that's.
Also.
What'd you say?
That is good. I could partner with someone and they could just take the produce. And
right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Just in the Hartford area. I don't know, at the moment, I don't know of anyone in the Hartford area that's applying. Does anybody else have any connections to anyone that might even be thinking about this in Hartford area?
I'm sure there is some farmers probably got the email, but I was just gonna touch my friend Marty of Michael Life. We grow as farmers and deliver to the school too, and do the local farm market. I pretty much they probably got the email. I do.
Okay, Derek, could you put your email in the chat? I don't see it here. I think it would help me follow up with you if I can connect some dots.
Pretty much new to Zoom, and
Oh, okay. You know what? You emailed me this morning, Derek, so don't worry. I will make sure I include you, okay? I know how to reach you. No worries.
thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? Or anybody want to share their hesitations, their excitement?
I actually got on this email through the BFA in New York. I have a small non-for-profit program that grows and donates already. So I'm not sure if I qualify to apply for this if I have already nonprofit status, but I wanted to come in to learn about it and also to be available for farmers to maybe include me in their proposals if they want to, because I can distribute boxes to people in need because I already have been doing that. So I don't know.
Amy, what's the name of your organization?
Called Our New Way Garden.
Okay. And which county are you in New York?
I'm in Westchester.
Westchester, okay.
But
all right.
I work with a school that has kids all over the New York City area. And so one of the things I really wanted to do was to try to distribute to them. And their families if possible also, because they all at the school is pretty much 98% breakfast free lunch program. So that was something I was thinking about.
Okay, Amy, I'll send you a link. Somebody yesterday shared a link of a chart with all the potential food hubs that might be applying. And I think the smartest thing to do would be for you to reach out to the ones in your area because they might be looking to apply and they might need nonprofits like yours as recipient nonprofits. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. All right. I'll find that document and send that to you when we're finished.
Great. Thanks.
No problem. Anyone else with a question or something they want to share?
I guess my question would be in terms of connecting the dots later. You mentioned the co-op potentially applying.
Yes.
And just before we launch into our own efforts, if we're not looking for a big chunk of CSA development, and whether you threw out the number 30 shares, and I don't know like what you imagine being the, if we're not going to be competitive, it makes a lot more sense for us to try to combine efforts with somebody. So, but I don't know how quick the turnaround is going to be to actually figure that out. So.
No, that's helpful. I think, and looks like Lee signed off, but yeah, I did reach out directly to Alice about trying to put together a proposal through the co-op. I'm not sure how that's going to sync with Click since it's in the same place, but and she specifically mentioned you guys as a potential source. So I will tell her that you already sound like you might be interested in being part of that.
Yeah. Okay, I'll reach out to them too, and just okay, thanks.
Yeah, Alice seemed ready to go for it, but it's just the work that we have to do this week to get it in. So.
Yeah, and I'm happy to help with that too.
Okay, awesome.
On their behalf. So.
Okay. Roger, did you have any questions? I don't know if you're still there.
I'm still here. I don't have any other questions. That one thing was just that whether we needed to become an approved vendor or not, and
yeah, definitely
that's
not.
good that we don't.
Right. Are you thinking of doing it?
Yeah, I'm gonna get in touch with the food bank that we work with, and also Gifts of Love and Avon. We also are delivering to. So I think I'm sure they could use the boxes, and just want to figure out, how many and those other details.
Yeah, kind of like Ciccarelli's. I really feel like SubEdge would make a strong proposal. I really think those are two. I think those two would be reviewed well. If you.
I'm not going to go. I'm going to put it on the line because these people need to eat. And when you hear on the radio that they hand in the news that they handed out 1,000 bags a day at Rensselaer Field, and they still can't feed all these people, it's only going to get worse from here on out.
Yeah.
And I know over here in Wallingford, I mean, they're looking at handing out 5,000, 6,000 boxes a week.
Yeah.
And the only thing I wish there was a little longer of a program or a different type of program for that, the fact that we could bring these to the city somehow, because we're going to, the constraints that are going to be put on us in our two markets in Bridgeport and our market in New Haven, which all we do is feed underserved people. I mean, we take $100 in petty cash to go to those markets, and we come back with $110 cash because they're just not cash markets. And those are the people that are going to be strapped. But I don't know, today's already Tuesday, and I don't know how to come up with a plan to fulfill their needs.
Yeah, I don't want to dissuade you from going to CT Food Bank as a destination, but like I'm going to talk to Michelle McCabe in an hour or two from Bridgeport, and like if there's a way to get the product directly to some of these destinations, that might be worth thinking about in addition.
If there's a way to, I mean, I reached out to City Seed, but I haven't got a return call yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I mean, how many thousand do you think they could hand? I mean, I'm going to say they could probably hand out 3,000 a week in Bridgeport.
Right.
If there's somebody willing to.
I'll call you. All right. I'll call you after I talk to Michelle. And I was talking to somebody in Fairfield County yesterday, and that's why I'm doing the call today with Michelle and her again. And it sounds like it's really seriously horrible in Fairfield right now. And the shelves are empty, and CT Food Bank is actually not effectively filling all those shelves. And so,
well, that I can't speak for that, but I'm willing to put it on the line for this whole thing. So
okay.
If you find somebody else, I know the numbers I want to shoot for, and we could talk about it.
Okay. I will, I'll get back to you today. Okay. I see your number here. So I'm happy to meet you, and I'll get back to you. And I think I'll stop this now. I appreciate you all giving a shot and joining in the call, and I will share with you more as I get it. Okay.
Thanks for everything, Jeff.
Perfect. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.